basically your committee, your country, and then your full name. That way we can easily identify you for Q&A and to help us spot our delegates, okay? All right. So within the next 6 minutes, we will begin. So take this time to make yourself comfortable because we will begin immediately. Speakers, can you hear me? Are you audible?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. All right. So good evening to all participants and all those who are watching our live stream. I am Nicholas Benzuela, the founder and the current Secretary General for the first ever Southeastern United Nexus Model United Nations, or SUNMUN for short. And I welcome all to you our second webinar series, which is Effective Chairing. Now, for those who are not aware, we had a webinar series yesterday explaining about how to prepare for Model United Nations as a delegate. We had experienced speakers from Malaysia, Indonesia, and India detailing certain aspects of how to delegate. So for today, we decided to share this time the ins and outs of effective chairing. This is in particular for, wait, this is for the ins and outs of the days or boards of days. Those who are still not aware of this term, it's your facilitators. the one who manages the committees. These are the people who help guide you. And this is to also help those aspiring mooners, experienced delegates, in in planning themselves to one day hold the gavel, one day manage a committee, one day help teach others about how to be a proper mooner. So without further ado, I invited our board of days for our current Sun Moon roster. Each and every one of them have a good deal amount of experience as a delegates and also as chairs. I have worked with them in my online and even chair the committee with one of them. And they're all very effective and they all have great positive ratings from the moons they've been part of. So with that, we will immediately begin with our first speaker. So with our first speaker is from somebody from the Philippines, Mr. Aaron Aquino. He will be the first presenter detailing about detailing about preparing as a chair. The first things you do before the committee sessions, before the conference prior. So Aaron, how are you? Aaron, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah. Sorry, I just turned on my camera and my mic. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, and good morning, depending on where you are. So, my name again is Aaron Aquino, and I'll be the first speaker of this second edition. Second webinar of SUNMUN. So yeah, I'll just share my screen so that we can formally start with my presentation for today. All right.
Yes.
I'm
Just
sorry.
to just to share, Aaron will be detailing much more specifically how to coordinate with your team for maximum efficiency pre-conference and during conference, how to make an excellent study guide, and three, how to encourage beginner mooners to engage in committee sessions. This is also gives you delegates, current delegates, a concept of what will the days do to you during the conference prior, and those who are aspiring to be days, maybe to learn more. Okay.
Right. Thanks so much, Mr. Secretary General. So, again, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, depending on where you are. Just greeting you a good day. So, I hope you're having a great day. So, before anything else, I'll just share my screen for you to see my visual aids for today's webinar. All right. Hope you're seeing my screen. Is my screen visible now, Mr. Secretary General?
Yes, it's visible. There's no
All right.
tabs.
All right. Thank you so much. So, to distinguished speakers, Mr. Secretary General and other secretariat, and delegates or and attendees of this SUNMUN webinar, second SUNMUN webinar. Thanks so much for coming. So this is the second webinar session. It's about effective sharing. So before I start, I'll just have a short introduction of myself. My name is Aaron Aquino. I'm a Filipino. I'm civil engineering graduate. Actually, I just graduated today from University of the Philippines, Diliman. And I'm an MUner. Actually, this is my 19th Dais experience, sharing experience. This one is my 19th. All right. So here's my flow of presentation for today. So as what the Mr. Secretary General said a while ago, I'll be discussing three, but I'll be having synthesis on the fourth one. So for this first part, I'll be explaining how to maximize efficiency within teams. Basically, we have to explore the world of team coordination, how we can produce effective products or maximum products in our teams or in our projects, especially in the committee. Since all of you, I think most of you, I guess most of you wants to be a chair in the future, and this would really help and for you to chair. And for my first presentation, first point, I'll be discussing team as a general, not being specific with MUN, but I'll be connecting these with sharing experience from time to time. All right, so that you can use it not just in MUN but also in your community groups also or community organizations. All right. Let's start off. First is how would we in order for us to know how to operate a team, we must always have to understand the definition of a team. So what is a team? So should we only wait a minute. Should we only end the description of a team with a group of individuals? Our team are just group of individuals? Or wait a minute, sorry, give me. All right, thanks so much. Should we only close this to only group of individuals? Or are we enough? Is that enough to consider what a team is? Or is the team have members with same set of skills or ideas? Or are the teams have diverse thoughts or beliefs? So there are different interpretations on how we define a team, but based on my research, this is the main description that I love because I'll explain later. So it's from Washington .edu. So basically, they define a team as a group of people with different skills and different tasks who work together on a common project, service or goal with matching functions and mutual support. So you can see that's why I like this definition because it's a very active definition. What do you mean by active definition? It did not only describe what a team comprises of. It also describes what a team is aiming for and what are the challenges of the team and how to overcome those challenges to reach your common goal. So let's just analyze this one by one through this words, through this set of words. So a team basically is composed of group of people. It's a basic sense. So basically, these group of people have differences, and these differences are the challenges for the teams to reach their common goal. So in order to overcome the impact of these differences, we have to mesh our ideas, our diversity and function, and have mutual support to reach our target, number one target, which is our common goal. So the idea behind this team description is this concept of understanding and appreciating diversity. So we must always understand that a team doesn't all team members do not always agree with each other. So we have to understand and appreciate diversity and leverage on the strengths of each other's teams. So how should we maximize efficiency within teams, especially in our committee in MUNs? So I'll just give you these network of performances. Actually, there are only five. There are two redundants there. So I'll just point it out later. So first, we have the purpose, and at the top part, the purpose, mission, and main objective is known and understood by all team members. So basically, for example, at the start of your committee, you should orient the delegates. What is this MUN or what this MUN is trying to do, what this committee is trying to achieve. Like you have to establish or you make a clear vision or clear objective of what you are trying to achieve in your committee sessions. So make sure that everybody, even the first timers or the experienced ones, are onboarded on your journey so that they would understand how to act inside the committee to really have a good product at the end. And that is the draft resolution. Next, communication in the team is open, direct, and honest. So in the MUN, you should always be have an open communication with the delegates, especially during breaks. You have to open yourself for questions like that so that you can clear things out and be honest with them and be direct with them. Next is there's an agreed organizational structure to the team. Sufficient leadership is available in the team. Basically, you as a chair, you know that you are a leader. However, you should establish your authority within. You should establish the what kind of authority do you want with the inside the committee? Are you going to be very strict? Are you going to be very loose in the rules of procedure? Actually, it depends on how you envision your team members or your committee members. That's why I'll explain later. But during the start of my committee sessions, normally I open myself for questions to know more about them. Like I ask who are the first timers, how many first timers do we have, so that I know how strict should I be, even though I'm not very strict. And I know some people here know. And next is last is there's a regular review of how well the team's performing towards achieving its purpose. Basically, it happens on the breaks. What I do here is I give general feedbacks or tips or like what's happening, where are we now, or basically at the end of the first day of the conference, what I do with them is to give them some tips or general comments on their mistakes. And yeah, you should regularly review on what's happening within your committee already. All right. So all right, I just next. So what are the active actions do we need to make efficient and successful team? Because what I said earlier are just um, general things. I mean, not that specific actions. So what are the active actions? So I'll be giving you 11. I'll run them quickly. First, everyone has a voice. So basically, you have to seek opinions and input before finalizing decisions or plans. So not just on you, but also when you see some delegates building their own groups or blocks, you have to remind them that, hey, you're a group. You should always consider the opinions, or you should ask inputs from each and every delegate. So the more perspective or lenses you have, the more substantial your draft resolution is. Next is sensitive to the needs of others. I mean, needs of the team. So again, be available to help your teammates or your team members. Open yourself for questions. Next, on-time deliverables. Make sure to follow your schedule, especially on MUN, or like the secretariat give you what do you call this, schedule. So I always keep my schedule, especially during if the MUN only lasts for a day or 2 days. So I'll just if we have time later, I can show you. But basically, I try to in the middle of the committee, I try to review my if I'm already delayed or too early. All right. Next is appreciating inputs from others. And next is healthy discussion. So as a chair, you are a leader and you are a person. So as a human, we all commit mistakes. So don't be too defensive on ideas. Just be receptive to ideas, opinions, and needs of teammates. Next is non-toxic team members. Do not criticize team members or committee delegates when they are not in present. Next is update every single member. Actually, not every single, but you should update your committees, what's happening and how what changes are we planning to do. Next is clear and precise goals. So I said it earlier. Next is active participation. So when you see that the direction of the committee is already not in the right path, you can have break like that. You should pitch what you guys were going to do. You should give them tips. You should redirect their path, redirect their stabs, and make sure that they're going on the right way. Next is preparedness and punctuality. You should remind all the blocks that because they're arranging meetings, that each delegate should come to meetings prepared. And next is lastly vision magnified, considering the impact of that blocks or teams plans on the rest of the organizations. Like they are created draft resolutions not just for their block but for the whole committee. That's the one thing that you should always remind your delegates, because some delegates are just creating blocks just for their own personal agenda, but always remind them that they're creating these draft resolutions for the whole committee, not just for their block. All right. So before I end my first point, so I just want you to have this think session. So as a human or as a leader, think one leader you always like or admire. What did that leader do and why did you like him or her? Think about the positive qualities of that leader. Maybe most of you, or qualities of that chairperson or that board of Dais, maybe most of you would really want to copy those qualities of that leader. You adore them and want to implement their policies or their qualities in your team members or committee. However, it's good. However, most people have a mistake in this thinking process. When you think of this way, it's not enough. You should always think the other way around. Think of one leader that you did not like. What did that leader do and what did you not like about his or her leadership style? Like the negative things you don't want about that leader. Think about it and have a chemicalization on your mind so that you will not be able to implement it on your committees. Sorry, I'm checking my I'm checking my time. All right. All right, that's it. I'll open myself for questions. Actually, we have open forum later, so we can ask questions if you need more clarifications and maximizing efficiency within teams. But due to time constraints, we need to have an overall overview of these points. Next is we're done with maximizing efficiency. Let's proceed to creating an excellent study guide. Basically, a study guide, a good study guide, and a helpful study guide. Uh, how to initiate ideas for the committee through the study guide. So actually, study guides are one of the most important tasks for chairs. it includes all the necessary things, ideas that states all the necessary equipments, requirements expected from the delegates. So you should put right effort for your study guide, reference them, and provide full explanations of the previous and actions with regards to the topic. Basically, it's a starting point for the delegates to research. Basically, it's part. It is the material that caused the delegates to have more research. Basically, the main goal of the study guide is to like tell the delegate, hey, it's your this study guide serves as your starting point, and after reading this study guide, I assure you that you will want to research more. So that's the basic I mean, how to say it, basic goal of the study guide. So in this section, I'll just give you some tips on writing a study guide for a very quick discussion. All right. So we have run through the basic structures of the study guide. So note that structures vary per MUN, but these are the most essential parts, I think, of a study guide. So let's start with the introduction. When we say introductions, we have three types of introductions. Introduction of chair, committee, and topic. For introduction of chair, basically, not all MUNs require this, but in some MUNs that I chaired, basically using our stating your name, your country of origin, and what you're currently doing in your professional or student life is already enough for the delegates to know your self or your credentials. So maybe some MUNs will require you to have personal message or letters to the delegates, which is also okay. So basically, you have to. It is a way in order for you to connect to the delegates, to start connecting with the delegates. They have to know you. Next is introduction to the committee. Basically, this is what the committee is. It states the history of the committee since it was founded. In establishing this section of your study guide, you have to answer the five W's on one page. What the committee is all about, where it is, and why, who, and who, what, where, when, why, and how it works. So remember those five W's and one H, and then supplement. So just supplement other details. So just state what the committee is currently doing, what are the specific rules and abilities. I think this is a very important thing to note, that you should always give a clear mandate and powers of the committee, because there are some discussions in my past committee that they always forgot the mandate of the committee, that they're trying to solve a problem, they're trying to open a topic or solve a problem that is not their mandate. So it's very important to you to clear the mandate of the committee so that you can enclose the scope of the discussion and not let the delegates beat around the bush. All right. I hope you understand me. Sorry, I'm trying to be fast. Next is the topic. Basically, the top introduction to the topic is serious on how you should you frame your rest of the study guide. How should you want to um, proceed the discussion of the committee? So this section highlights and main ideas and frames the rest of the study guide. So it gives the clear understanding of what is expected from them. So basically, if you want to give the history about the topic, you have to know what are the causes that push this event or push this problem to arise. And second is relevant points in the continuation of the issue until the modern times. Basically, the progress of the topic, or like what's happening now and how's the intensity of the topic, like that. All right. So again, as stated in the last paragraph, you can start with like defining with some terms, then having a quick discussion of the cause of the issue, and always give context on what's happening and the reason behind that happening. So why we need this introduction to topic? It's because we have to lay the foundation for the next chapter by defining the most important points and explain the concepts of the topic. Next is current situation. Basically, it's the most important session of the study aid. Here, you already consider the progress being taken by international organizations or offices or agencies on the topic. So that your resolutions or your solutions are not redundant with the past past committees. All right. So here you fill the section with numbers, dates, facts, and figures. Basically, you have to give ideas on the progress of the topic. I mean, the impact like that. So you have to elaborate more on the pros and cons on the status quo and make sure that the different challenges that come from the situations are very clear. So at the end of the section, your main goal is to really encourage the delegate to start researching information relevant to their country's position and the case they will start constructing. So basically, here in the current situation, you give a general overview of what's happening. Then it should make a spark on the delegate to like push them to specify their research on their topic on their country's position. Next is past actions. So basically, it's somewhat relevant to the current situation, but basically, you have to cite the most important actions taken by the body you are simulating and the most important resolutions and the most recent resolutions so that, again, it is not repetitive. All right. Um, you should give relevant examples. You should give documents, policies passed like that, so that here by providing past actions, you'll be able to like limit the scopes also, and give the ideas delegates the give the delegates ideas of what you're trying to say to them. Next is block positions. Actually, this is optional, but one thing that I want to emphasize here is make it general because I mean uh, uh, when you are required, make it general. Why? Right. I just proceed to the next. Um, because there are some topics that are not very relevant to other to other countries. So basically, what I do when I have these when I'm required to use block positions is to make block positions based on regions. For example, uh, a good way to create the advice blocks is according to regions such as Western Europe, North Africa, Central America, or Southeast Asia. Another option is basically divide the countries along their interest or cultural lines like that. Next is questions and resolution as answer. This is my favorite part, I think, because it directs the flow of the committee. And here, actually, your goal here is to make sure that the delegates research the right points, and it helps them guide their country specific research and kickstart their thinking process about ideas for their policies and clauses. Basically, these are set of questions that the delegates must discuss within the committee, and it sets the direction of the committee as well. So you have to really think those questions that really matters and really that are easily understood by the delegates. So the questions a resolution must answer should be used to get the delegate to look for specific information and encourage creative thinking. So the key here, in order to be successful in this part, is to know what type of information you want the delegate to look for, and what to set for offers, what you want, what direction you want the delegate, the committee would lead to. And next is optional reading. Basically, just give optional reading for them to read. Bibliography references, they are very important. Proper references, citations, intersections needed. Basically, you can make this as footnotes or a list at the end as bibliographies. So normally, some MUNs do not require specific citations, but you can use APA, MLA, or freestyle. So what are the do's in writing as study guide? Sorry, I think I'll extend 1 minute. Sorry. I have five. I'll just give them one by one. Next is discuss them quickly. First is tailor to the level of the room. Basically, you have to understand that will be read by your delegates, the experience and the first timers. So you have to assure that your study guide is not very technical or it's understandable by everyone. Next is proper referencing. I said it earlier. Incorporating UN resolutions. I said it earlier. Maximize your resources. So you have a full range of resources on the internet, and choose the most credible ones. So basically UN offices or some NGO reports to give you a more comprehensive picture of the issue. And next is understand the topic. Of course, it's very important for you to understand the topic so that you'll be able to know how to direct your committee. And next is, sorry, some tips. So, oh, sorry. Remember what the study guide is for? Don't give too much information. Its aim is just to kick off the thinking process of the delegates. Next is frame the debate using the study guide. So normally it happens on the questions a resolution must answer on the or on the current situation. Next, be balanced again. You should provide equal knowledge on all countries. So you should not only give too much background on one country, say Afghanistan or like other things, other specific countries, but be balanced. Next is embrace numbers and examples. I said it earlier. Keep it short and simple. Concise and precise is important. And next is conclude with a reminder. This is basically I do this in some MUNs. So basically I give them reminder on what should they do. I give them the links, YouTube links actually, video links on what should they watch to understand the topic. All right. As I end this point, always remember that the study guide only serves as a starting point of the delegates to learn about the topic. Don't give too much information. It's the delegates' responsibility to conduct more researches to gain better knowledge on the topic being discussed. Don't give too much information. Don't give less information, just enough information. I think you know how it should be done. And yeah, so that's my second point. My third point is how to deal with beginning MUNers, mooners. I mean, those beginning their journeys in our first timers. How to encourage the newbies to participate, to actively participate in the committee sessions. This is my favorite point actually, since I have a very soft heart in first timers. People here know that. I have very soft heart in the first timers. So for you to understand how should we deal with beginners, you should understand that the way you chair varies from day one, from the first hour of the day one until the last hour of day two. It varies. How? So I'll explain you the situational leadership by Paul Hersey and Cal Blanchard. So you have four quadrants there representing four types of people in a team or in a committee. So at the upper right is the enthusiastic beginners. So basically they have low competence and high commitment. So sorry, they really want to participate. However, they feel that they have low competence. So I'll show you later how to deal with it. Next is disillusioned learner. They have variable competence and low commitment, capable but cautious, high competence, variable commitment, and self-reliant. That's a self-reliant achiever, high competence, and high commitment. Basically, the flow is from this to this. Actually, in every MUNs that I chair, this is my aim, that every enthusiastic beginner, I will transform them to be a self-reliant achiever. And so that in the next MUN, they'll be able to perform better. And for each type of delegate, we have what we call the actions that you must do. So these actions are directing, coaching, supporting, and wait a minute, and delegating. So basically, the questions that you must answer here is, for example, for R1 or the region one at the upper right hand, they are wait a minute. They really have lots of questions. Like they don't want to participate like that. So you should direct them. You should give them how the committee will run or the whole direction of the committee. Next is for disillusioned learner and capable but cautious. These are both actually, I mean, somewhat have a team line in between, coaching and supporting, guide them. But as you reach the self-reliant achiever, you have to slowly, slowly get off their path or get off their guidance and start like believing that they can do it. So as I said, this is just an overview, but if you find it interesting, you can research it. Situational leadership, Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. It's very helpful. It will help you not just in MBN but also in your life. So we'll just focus here on the first quadrant. So our questions is how to encourage beginners to be active in the committee. First is again, have clear objective. Explain the specific purpose of the committee. The questions that you must answer here is what steps do the committee need to take to achieve the objective? What is expected from each delegate? Like how would the committee run? And what the process or what are the contents of each session. So I think you may find it ridiculous, but I do this. I do this basically in my committees. Like I said, okay, we have general speakers list and moderated caucus. Basically, general speakers list, you have to speak more about general things, and moderated caucus about specific things. General, for example, we have a general topic on science. On moderated caucus, we have to, our aim there is to specify the topic like chemistry, biology, physics, like that. So I do that. I do that. Especially during breaks, I'm a spoon feeding chair. So especially at the first set of sessions, I do this for to assure that everybody's onboarded, like everybody understands what's currently happening. Next is opening the committee. I told it a while ago that I always open the committee by opening myself first to questions to clear things out. And the questions that you must answer is the delegate committee. Sorry. All right. The questions you must answer is don't mind the below is how should I deal with the incompetence of the first timers or unawareness of the first timers with regards to the rule of procedures of MUN. So you should always open yourself for questions because based on my experience, when I already open my self for questions, then I give the gossip box. I receive feedbacks from them that it's a very effective thing because it helps the community lighten up the mood, and it helps the first timers because the first timers are beginners, and when they stand there in front of the laptop or in front of their computers, they are nervous inside. So when the chairperson open themselves for questions, at least they will know that they have someone to talk with when they have problems, or they have someone to approach to when they need to ask questions. All right. So it helps you and the committee actually when you open yourself for questions at the start of the committee. Next is spread positivity. Actually, people here, I mean, my friends here, call me Baymax because it's my aura, they said. But yeah, I think I'll take it as a compliment because I always love to spread positivity. By spreading positivity, lighten up the mood of the committee. So the questions you must answer the questions that you must answer here is to whom do the delegates should go if they have concerns. So if you spread positivity, they would not be afraid to ask you a question. Next is are the chairpersons approachable enough? And is the floor conducive to speaking, especially for beginners? So again, non-toxic discussion. So basically, what I do, for example, a first timer committed a mistake, especially in the rules of procedure, I let it pass. But if needed, immediately I tell them what's wrong. But normally, if it is a light mistake, during breaks, I give a general feedback, not stating the delegate who made the mistake, but a general feedback to everyone that these mistakes should not be done again. For example, use of personal pronouns is very common. All right, I think my time is running. All right, Maria, you miss me, Maria.
Wait.
Yeah.
All
Um,
right.
wait, sorry, I just have few more. Sorry.
Mhm.
Next is healthy committee. Make sure that there's no space for committee in for embarrassment. So as I said earlier, don't embarrass those for speaking because it frightens the delegates. And as I end this point, you should know that you should. I want you guys to remember this. As a chairperson, it is a must for you to be sensitive to the needs of every single member of your committee, especially to the first timers. Put yourself on their shoes and think how they think and how would they feel the start. Everyone's having their nerve cracking like that. So you have to loosen them up so that they can speak, or you should encourage them to speak. And as a chairperson, it is your responsibility to set the platform even during the committee sessions. And lastly, I think this is just 1 minute synthesis. Basically, for my synthesis, do's and don'ts of a good chairperson based on my previous submissions, or I mean previous discussions. So good chairpersons make all members feel valued, and a bad chairperson talks too much. Good chairperson strive for consensus, and a bad chairperson makes all the decisions. Good chairperson listens to others, while bad chairperson only allows one or two persons to dominate. Good chairperson encourages new faces into the committee, and a bad chairperson cut people out of discussions. Good chairperson plans for the future, and bad chairperson allows meetings to become unproductive. Good chairperson make new members feel welcome, and bad chairperson make people feel foolish or useless, which is what we don't want to happen. Next, good chairperson is allow others to take responsibility, and bad chairperson force people to contribute to discussions. Good chairperson keep calm and know when to stand out, and bad chairperson lose his temper or her temper and stay too long. So as I end, I know you are seeing this bulb. So why this bulb? Why this bulb with pencil? Because in this webinar, I know you gain a lot of insight, and you will gain a lot of insight, especially to the succeeding speakers. But always remember that the flow of knowledge doesn't end here. Put your knowledge into actions. Apply this knowledge, and by application, applying this knowledge, you'll be able to teach other people today. People in your area, and this stems out to other people also in other areas. So, and gradually, you can spread these learnings into a greater area. So, the bulb there represents the learnings, and the pencil there is writing, putting into actions. So, I think that ends my presentation. Again, my name is Aaron Aquino, and see you on December. I'll be the head chairperson of UNCND for SUNMUN 2020, and my contact details are below for your future references. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for that, Aaron. So now, most of your Q&A session has been taken up due to your presentation, but we have 3 minutes. With that, any delegate or anyone in the audience wants to ask a question, feel free to ask now by raising your hands or through the chat right now. Okay, let me check. Okay, we have one.
All right.
From our audience. So you've mentioned earlier that you just graduated from civil engineering. For those who are new in Moon, what can you say to those who think that Moon is just for those who are studying political science, law, etc.?
All right. I think thank you for that question, for relaying that question, Mr. Secretary General. So yeah, I'm a graduate of engineering, civil engineering. Basically, on the start of my MUN journey, I felt that it wasn't for me. But I mean, I thought that it wasn't for me. But I think MUN is not just about political issues. It's not just about social issues, because having a lot of people with diverse backgrounds in the community will help you have more perspective in your discussions. So being a chair as an engineer helped me to have a different approach in attacking different topics. So it's your strength, actually. It's your strength. It establish your own identity as a chair. Who are you as a chair? And don't be discouraged. I mean, uh, it doesn't mean that you're an agriculture, you have an agriculture background, you're not allowed to chair in IMON. I mean, in MUN or SUNMUN. But you are allowed. Everybody's allowed. Yeah, I think that's it from me.
All right, we can entertain one more question. Who will entertain? All right, Maria.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. So I have a question in regards to your presentation. So the main topic of your presentation is about maximum efficiency, correct?
Yes.
So you have explained very thoroughly and elaborately in regards to how to maximize the efficiency between the board of Dais and the delegates. But my question is actually I have a question. in regards to how to actually maximize the efficiency between the board of Dais. So as we noticed, a chair rarely do their moderating or chairing by themselves. So how to actually maximize this coordination between the board of Dais?
All right, thank you for that question, Ms. Maria. So actually, when you are in the board of Dais, you two are a team. So it's very the presentations or the discussions that I made earlier are somewhat relevant, especially when for some points for some points. So wait, I'll just go back to my slide. So there are some active actions that I do. For example, most important I think is communication should be direct, honest, and should be open, especially to your board of Dais. Oh, sorry, did I live? To your board of Dais, because when you're don't sugarcoat too much. I mean, the committee or what you're planning to do in the committee is for the betterment of the committee. So you're applying your makeup. Sorry, I'm distracted. All right. Yeah, I have open communications with your co-board of Dias. Always listen to him or her and be receptive to ideas. Don't always say that what you're doing, even though you have 19 or 20 experience and your co-chair only had two, it doesn't mean that you are always correct. So you should always be receptive to ideas, and you should always analyze those ideas and do not close yourself for those thoughts. And yeah, just have communications. So what I do basically before I mean Maria doing it before before we chair is to have call. Basically for my co-chair, we usually have quick discussions about ourselves, then to loosen up things between us, then talk about the committee and how we're going to um, what direction we want for the committee. Set the committee direction as one, not as individuals.
Okay, thank you for that, Aaron. All right, there seems to be more questions, but right now we have to proceed to the next speakers. Those who want to ask Aaron questions, wait until the open forum where you can ask as much questions as you can. Okay. So with that, we'll need to proceed to our second speaker, and it's none other than Maria Vanessa, the, from Indonesia. A bit of background about her. Maria and me shared in our first online moon together in International Moon, and she showed herself to be one of a very good in feedbacks and when it comes to monitoring the delegates, and she grew from there as being one of the veteran chairs of iMoon alongside me. So with that, Maria will be presenting about best methods in metrics in grading delegates for awards, then handling power delegates and competitive committees, and third, how to make your committee sessions more memorable and fun by the end of the final session, which is something Maria specifically excels at. Okay, so Maria, you may now take the podium. You may now present.
All right, thank you so much, Nicholas. Before I start sharing my presentation, there's something that I'd like to make. Right, so I think Nicholas is sugarcoating a bit when he said that it is what Maria did the best, because I have to say that so many other chairs, well, actually make a company more memorable than I do. So with that being said, before proceeding with the next session, I would like to make this presentation memorable, not only for me, but hopefully for all of you. So for all the secretariat who are actively participating and can see me on this Zoom platform, kindly turn on a camera. I can see so many UNHCR delegates. So for your information, I'm going to head chair UNHCR. So I'm very proud to see that so many of my delegates actually come here. But no shaming, delegate of UNCND, and no shaming for delegate of prices, right? Delegates of UNHCR, kindly turn on your camera. I want to play something before I proceed with my presentation. I want to make this memorable, especially for me at least. Right, hi, delegate of DR Congo, nice smile. Delegate of Lebanon had been turning on and off the camera for a while. Right, delegate of Sweden. Oh, delegate of Sweden is wearing full attire, actually wearing blazer, but at least it's more formal than what I wore today. Here's your finance, right? UNCND Romania, Nice one. Right, delegate of Ethiopia, Bulgaria from UNCND, UNHCR, Venezuela, and I don't know who this is, but Matthew. Right, Venezuela. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so with that being said, before I proceed with this presentation, I would like to play some games because, right, a little bit about me. If previously Nicholas had already explained to you of my MUN experiences, then I'm going to introduce myself in a bit of a more approachable side, all right? So I'm active on TikTok, so you might want to see me more on my TikTok instead of Instagram or other platforms. Well, to be honest with you, I'm not very active on any other platforms compared to TikTok. So if you want to reach me, then do not hesitate to follow my TikTok. It's on Maria5792 Vanessa. All right. For those watching on Facebook, don't forget to install TikTok as well. Because I'm a TikTok person, I usually play this on TikTok as well, right? So we play using our fingers. I'm going to read some categories and you have to put your finger down if one category had been satisfied. All right. So for example, if I said, all right, I'm active on TikTok. If you feel you're active on TikTok, put one finger down. I have more than 2 followers on TikTok. Put your finger down. All right. That is only for example, all right? So put 2 of your hands up and we're going to play, right? The one with, well, let's say the one with the most fingers up is going to be punished by the end of this conference, right? Perhaps in question and session or the open forum, right? So listen carefully to what I'm going to read. Actually read, right? I can't memorize all of them. So put your finger down if this is not your first MUN. Put your finger down if this is not your first MUN, whether it is going to be a secretariat, delegates, chair, etc. Put your finger down if this is not your first MUN, right? Okay, I don't see any first timers here. Nicholas, put your finger down. All right, next one. Put your finger down if you attend yesterday's webinar. Sorry, I don't come, so I don't put my finger down. Put your finger down if you attend yesterday's webinar. Sorry, I didn't come. Right? Okay, next one. Put your finger down if you are excited for today's webinar. Put your finger down if you're excited for today's webinar, meaning that you're here. Should I put it down? I'll put it down. I'm excited for today. Right? Next one, right? Listen carefully. This is more about MUN. So previously it was only warming up. Next one, put your finger down if you can't wait for Iman on 19th and 20th of December. Should I put it? All right, I'll put it down. I can't wait for it to get done. No, I just can't wait for SUNMUN because we have done a very well preparation. So we hope that you can actually, enjoy what we had prepared this far, right? So next one, listen carefully. It is the 4th one. Okay, I missed one already. Put your finger down if you have finished with your position paper. 4 chairs, put your finger down if you're finished with your study guide. Of course, I finished with my study guide. I'm the most punctual chair. Put your finger down, delegates, if you're finished with your study guide. And secretariat, put your finger down if you're finished with all things that you are supposed to do. For example, USG of technology, you're finished with your IT guide, etc. USG of delegate affairs, you're finished with all allocations, etc. So you have finished with the pre-conference preparation. Delegates, put your finger down if you're finished with your study guide. All right, nice one. Delegate of Sweden actually got the same number as mine. And so is delegate of DR Congo. And so is, I don't think delegate of academic is trying to put her finger down. But anyway, thank you so much. And so is delegate of Iraq from CND. Listen carefully to the next one. Put your finger down if you have prepared your first GSL. 4 chairs, put your finger down if you have finished preparing your opening speech. And for secretariat, you have prepared, right, for Secretary General, it's going to be you have prepared with your opening speech. For secretariat, you have prepared with your remarks from the secretariat. Opening speech, yeah, I don't think so, right? Right, next one. Okay, it seems that I'm losing a lot. I need to make myself win. It's my game, come on. All right, this time it's going to be a little thing that I like, all right? Put your finger down if you're excited for Christmas. Yay, 1 hands down, right? So next one, put your finger down. All right, this one, it's going to be related to MUN again. All right, I have lost a lot. Put your finger down if you have started lobbying your fellow delegates. If you have started contacted your fellow delegates in the group. You're already in group, correct? I put my finger down. I have been contacted by some of the delegates. All right, It's embarrassing. Come on, why still four? Last one. Put your finger down if you're thankful for SUNMUN and you consider this as a Christmas gift. All right, thank you so much, guys, for joining this game. Let me take a screenshot first. Right, so I think Aaron wins it. Oh no, USG of Technology actually wins it by having only one hand raised. Okay, with that being said, let me take a screenshot first. Nice one. Right, thank you so much, Delegate Secretariat. So at this point in time, I'm going to officially begin with my presentation. So first thing first, right? I hope that you keep your camera turned on so that I can see your participation, because, well, Aaron did it like, technically his presentation is very good, but let me tell you something, I'm not going to make an aesthetic presentation, so I'm just going to make it depending on what I am. So I'm just a simple tea lover. Actually, this is not tea, but as you can see, there's a leaf, so you can consider this a tea, all right? So previously, you have been briefed about all pre-conference preparation, such as how to maximize the efficiency between co-delegates and how to prepare a good study guide, as well as how to encourage first-timers if you actually plan on becoming a board of Dais in the future. So in my presentation, I'm going to focus more about grading methods and rubric, handling powerful delegates and competitive committees, as well as how to make the COMSES memorable, right? It's not going to take much time, but I still wish for you to pay attention to this, all right? So first thing first, when we come to grading methods and rubric, to be honest with you, I'm not a chair who use rubric a lot, because for me personally, well, a delegate is not rated, but assessed based on their participation, correct? And based on the quality of their speech. So sometimes when I actually focus more on grading, I focus more on the quantity instead of the quality. However, in SUNMUN, since we are required to use a rubric itself, so I'm just going to explain how I used to assess my delegates a year ago. So a year ago, I still use a rubric, but this year I did not use it, thanks to COVID, right? So with that being said, what is the purpose of a rubric itself? So a purpose of this rubric or a grading method is for first thing, assessment for the eligibility of awards for delegates, especially. And second, for the board of Dais, for me, what is important from an assessment, right? I'll call it grading, not a rubric, is because this actually helps or assists me in providing accurate personal feedback for the delegate itself. And don't worry about it, your personal feedback and general feedback part is going to be explained elaborately by our fellow board of Dais later on, so stay tuned, right? So those are the purposes of grading in my opinion. And next, how do we actually do the grading? As I've already told you, it's done through quantity measure as well as qualitative measure. So in terms of the quantity, then I would like to focus on the rubric. So some people might say, all right, I actually quote, all right, for example, you're a Stalinist. So you might heard this quote from Stalin before. Quantity has a quality of its own. Yes, indeed. However, well, I would like to focus more on quality. Why? Because when you focus more on the quality, then you focus more on the substance, correct? So when you actually focus on the quality, you can actually give a better feedback for delegates when they ask for personal feedback. And for me personally, in regards to my presentation, how to make the comedy memorable, well, it is not only what you have before the conference or during the conference, but it is also something that you have after the conference or post-conference. So sometimes in my personal experience, some delegates still keep in touch with me. And if I actually grade them substantially or in terms of quality, then I would have known what this delegate actually liked. So usually when I only use rubric, then I told this delegate, all right, so your performance from a rank of 0 to 5, it is only a 4.5, for example. But if I actually write down the quality of their substance, then I can tell them immediately, all right, you actually lack in this point of presentation, in this part. So for you to become a better delegate in the future, then you can actually do this, that, and that, which is why how we actually do it. Two ways. First is quality, second is quantity. In terms of quality, write down the substantial speeches that they made. And in terms of quantity, then you use a rubric for that, all right? And the use of rubric is equivalently important. So if you have listened to me this far, you might feel like, all right, she is boasting about quality point of view. So what about quantity? All right. So sometimes when the committee is becoming too competitive, or yeah, not too competitive, but everybody got equal chances, opportunities to speak, And usually this happens in a big committee, as in not a big committee as in a big topic, but we have a big number of committee, correct? So usually this quantitative method of grading or rubric will come in handy when you actually have a large number of committees, which is why you might want to incorporate both, especially in SUNMUN, even though this is not as much as having 100 delegates. But I believe that the substantial quality will, suffice, that not only that it will suffice, but it will exceed our expectation, because this had been very well prepared compared to other online conferences that we had during this pandemic session, right? No shady. I'm not trying to throw any shade, but you understand it. And next, awards eligibility. So one of the purpose of grading is, of course, to determine the awards eligibility. So let me tell you something for the awards. Actually, in the rubric that SUNMUN is going to utilize, it is not limited to only these three, but for me personally, I will only introduce you to these three awards eligibility criteria. So first one is technicality. Okay, so in case that you're wondering why I did not stare at you in front of the camera, so here's my webcam and here is your faces. So I want to look at your faces who are paying attention to my presentation, all right? Right, so first thing is the technicality. So about technicality, it consists of your decorum. So first of all, you have to understand the ROP. And second is your diplomacy. And for diplomacy, I can actually rant about a lot of things. It could be your manner, it could be your speech, it could be your leadership, etc. And when we're talking about technicality, basically, I want you to focus on how to actually appropriately interrupt or start a speech in the conference. So when I'm talking about decorum, that means that you understand the RP, you understand which point you're going to use later on during the conference or committee session, right? So when you're a chair, you will definitely appreciate a decorum, which is why technicality is one eligibility for awards. And second, when we're talking about diplomacy, manner, speech. So when you're talking about speech, well, usually a board of Dais in offline conferences, especially, they will focus on how this delegate is trying to relay the content of their speech. So it is not merely reading out what you have on your paper, right? So for example, you've already done a research and you have already put it on a piece of paper and then you read it out for your delegates to listen, right? So that is not, right, that won't give you a good assessment on your technicality points, right? So try to make a presentation, even though you are given limited time. Well, make sure that you are trying to convey the point idea concisely to your fellow delegates, because you don't have a dice to impress. You have fellow delegates to coordinate with, right? Quote of the day. And next one, the substantial quality. So when it's about substance, then I only have two major points in determining the substance. First one is your analytical research, and second one is the relevance of your speeches, right? So regarding substantial quality, first one is analytical research. So since I also hail from debate background when I was in high school, well, analysis is definitely important. And what actually contributes the most to analysis is the background of your argument, right? So the background of the argument could vary depending on the statistics or the research that you had done. So sometimes I see many delegates come with, a lot of research, mostly statistics. So for example, in this year, for example, let's just take a committee which is talking about trade. So let's take WTO, right? And we're talking about trade embargo. So for example, I'm representing USA and I actually I actually provide statistics, and I said in 2018, the trade the trade balance is at this percent, and in 2019 the trade balance actually stays at this percent, and the next year 2020 or this year the trade balance stays at this percent, right? So when you're talking about percentage like that, it is not analytical at all. So if you want to give an analytical research or analytical speeches, then try to analyze it, of course. Try to analyze it, for example, from this year, for example, from 2018 to 2020, what happens? Is there any significant decrease, significant increase, or what kind of slight change that you see, all right? So you analyze those statistics into one concise sentences so that your delegates actually understand better, rather than writing down, right, in this year, USA, oh, this percent, in that year, USA, that percent, right? So that is the first part. And second part regarding substantial quality, it is about the relevance of your speeches. So in regards of the relevance, I have 2 points to be made. So first is relevance to topic, meaning that the general topic that you're discussing about. So just from today's experience, right, in the MUN that I was sharing today, we're talking about ensuring quality education for children. Note that quality education for children. However, some delegates actually focus more on focusing the quality education, equal access to education for men and women, right? So in your opinion, does that actually still make any relevance? For me, well, we're talking about quality education for children. So when you actually expand your spectrum to equal access of education for men and women, the idea actually, the topic actually got broadened up, and it is going to be hard for you to focus on the general idea, right? So try to be relevant to the topic. And second one, try to be relevant to the motion. Well, this does not need elaboration because relevant to the motion, meaning that, for example, when we're proposing a motion to speak about the root cause of the issue, then you focus on the root cause of the issue, not talking about, all right, so my country had actually implemented this policy in this year, starting this year, and the success rate in this year is actually at this rate percentage, blah, 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 right? So try to make your speech as relevant as possible to the motion that is being proposed, right? Especially in moderated caucus. And next, it is regarding still about substantial quality and still about relevance. It is about how you actually build up to each other's, how one delegate actually build up to each other's speeches. So usually we see a lot of delegates who come to the conference to impress the Dais, not to, not to endorse their solutions and to accommodate the interests of all delegates. So how do we actually accommodate the interests of all delegates? First of all, well, just like what the previous presentation had already told you, try to focus not only in your personal interest, but also in everybody's interest. So try to listen to what points they try to make. And if their points not coincidentally, have any relevance or similarities with yours, then you can second that delegate and build up from that delegate speech, right? So try to build up to each other's speeches. Even though that delegate is not seconding the point that you're trying to make, even though that delegate is speaking, all right, gibberish, well, you can actually build up to that delegate speech by saying, for example, however, we would like for this delegate to focus more on this part of the debate due to blah, 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 etc., right? So try to build up to each other's speeches. Next, last but not least, it is consistency. Well, for some board of Dais, they might see substantial impact as the most important criteria for awards eligibility. But for me, consistency actually matters most because, well, some delegates actually perform well on the first day, but on the second day, if they actually, well, significantly decline in terms of performance and frequency of speech, as well as their substantial quality, then it is not going to, make a good assessment in my book. I mean, like in my rubric, right? So for the consistency part, as well as other part, I provide you with a case study. So let's take it like this. Okay, Delegate A spoke a lot on day one and led the council, but did not speak at all on day two. But Delegate B spoke very little on day one, but speak more on day two, all right? So this is a hypothetical case. So if an award is to be given to either one of these two, who will get it, right? So just take an example. You're actually a board of Dais in this conference, and you have two kinds of delegates, delegate A and delegate B, all right? Don't ask about delegate C, and don't say, can we actually not give them any award? This is the situation of this hypothetical case, right? You have to give an award, be it recommendation, whatever, between these two delegate A or delegate B. So which one you're going to choose, right? For those of you who support delegate A, please raise your hands now. I just want to check how many people actually pay attention to this presentation, right? Look at Sweden, raise their hands. Nice one, you want to give it to delegate A, right? Let me check. Right, aside from delegate Sweden, we also have delegate of Lebanon from my comedy. All right, so delegate of Lebanon, since you're going to be my delegate later, let me remind you what's most important for Chair Maria is consistency, all right? So if it was me, I'm going to give it to delegate A. So thank you so much, delegate. You may lower down your hands now. Thank you very much. I'm going to give it to delegate B. Why? When you actually spoke a lot on day one, you led the council on day one, but your presence was not felt at all on day two. Well, you've already lost because on day two, well, usually the motto of my life is every day is a new leaf, right? So you can actually get anything new. So for example, you've already made a terrible mistake today. That does not mean that your terrible mistake should be repeated or should be condemned about on the other day, right? So there's always a room for change. So if delegate A actually perform very well on day one, for example, if this is right, the curve, I think it would show like this: delegate A from up here to down there. But for delegate B, they did not speak at all. But on day two, delegate B actually incorporate everything, especially general feedback that we have given to delegate B. So the performance actually rise up like this. So this happens to me not only once, but several times, be it in online conferences or offline conferences. I've seen a lot of delegate, like delegate A or delegate B. So in the end of the day, we have the argument to make delegate B the recipient of the award, because delegate B gave the consistency and the improvement that we expected to see, right? So we wish to see an improvement, not a stagnant performance or a declining performance. So it should be improving, all right? But if you have question, for example, I'm already doing good on first day. What if I did not get any better? What if I just get stagnant on second day? Well, it is okay. That could actually go for a second case study, but it actually depends on that delegate's performance. Again, we have to analyze everything not only quantitatively but qualitatively, right? It's not even a word. Next one, handling competition. So in terms of handling competition, so first thing first, let me introduce you to the terms that I always use for competitive committees. So we will see power del or powerful delegate, and we will also see wingman. So what is the difference between power del and wingman, right? So if you are not you are, okay, since today's session mostly talk about preparation for becoming a Dais, so you have to identify the power del and the wingman and the committee, right? Sometimes I still fail to identify which one is the power del and which one is the wingman. So power del and wingman are both similarly powerful delegates. However, power del is more dominant than the wingman itself, right? So wingmen are basically this kind of, right, actually enthusiastic delegate. If you can see, this is the achiever delegate in Aaron's spectrum, but this delegate is not as powerful, not as substantial, or not as outstanding as the powerful delegate. So you can be the wingman of one delegate, right? So sometimes I still got intertwined in recognizing which one is the power del, which one is the wingman. And this is actually very important, you know, because when determining an awards, of course, we need to bestow it to the power del. However, if we fail to distinguish which one is the power del and which one is the wingman, then our assessment could be questioned, right? And of course, it will affect your credibility as a chair. And next, after you identify the power del and wingman, you have to identify the competition. So it happens between who, and it happens like, not like what, but how it actually happens. So when you identify a competition, first thing that you can do is that you pay attention to the structure of the speech and the clarity. So sometimes it is easy to identify whether this is a powerful delegate or not based on the speech that you made, based on the speech that they made. So if they actually give a good structure, give a good opening, and they close it properly like what a diplomat should, then you can actually take that delegate into your power del classification. So let me tell you something. I always take all delegate as, you know, competitive delegate at the beginning, but upon listening to the first GSL, I will gradually, how to actually say it? I will gradually adapt their performance to the classification that I have. So for example, power del, and then wingman, and for example, only delegates who are here, only delegates who came to join as observer, right? So it doesn't mean that being observer is bad, but you have to identify the competition for you to make a rather credible assessment by the end of the day, right? So first thing on how to identify the competition, you pay attention to the speech structure and clarity. Second, well, just keep this in mind. Not all experienced delegate will brag about themselves, and not all first timers are uncompetitive. So, right. So how to identify competition? This is a good, actually, principle that you can follow. So don't assume, right? So stop being prejudicial, right? Sometimes Board of Dice did not even realize that this delegate is a first timer, and sometimes the Board of Dice did not even realize that this delegate is actually a veteran delegate or an experienced delegate. So never assume, never be prejudicial, right? And of course, not all competitions are toxic, and not all corporations are healthy either. So sometimes competitions actually exist in order to help certain block become a better block. So for example, this block had already achieved or had already incorporated or encompassed this spectrum of discussion, but our blog had not. So as you can see, there will be competition, but in this kind of thing, in this kind of circumstances, this situation is not at all toxic. However, when you're talking about cooperation, not all of them are also healthy either, right? Because in terms of some competition, in terms of some cooperation, sometimes when you come into a cooperation with a fellow, let's say, a fellow block leaders who cannot support each other, so they only want the spotlight and be the main attention of the board of dice, it is not going to be healthy anymore, right? So my point in how to identify the competition, don't assume. Next one, points to consider. So what to consider when aligning with powerful delegates and looking for wingmen, right? So what points you can actually take, what points you should pay attention to when you actually identify, when you already identify the portal and when they actually start aligning with each other. So first one, you have to see that delegates country's foreign policy. If the delegate already contradicted their own foreign policy by creating alliance with another delegate who is opposing their own foreign policy, then for me, a board of dice who is adhering to a principle of intersubjectivity, then it's already going to decrease or wane in terms of assessment, right? Second one is the shortcomings. So you understand that some delegates actually have their forte at negotiating. Some delegates actually have their forte in writing resolutions. So let's see whether these delegates actually, what is it, build up to each other's weaknesses. So if this alliance is good in terms of covering each other's shortcomings, then this certain power levels and wingmen could get higher mark in your assessment. So just pay attention, not pay attention. Right, so just make sure that you identify their cooperation or their collaboration specifically, all right? With that being said, I hope you understand the points that I'm trying to make. So I'm going to provide you with one more case study, all right? So in Conference X, UNICEF is discussing about prevention of child marriage and teenage pregnancy, right? It seems fine. A bloc with Iran and Turkmenistan, both of them are, right, not trying to become racist or Islamophobe, but both of them are Islamic countries, you understand? Bloc with Iran and Turkmenistan is, as co-sponsors, propose solutions to legalize the marriage at the age of 18. So how to manage? It might seem, all right, both of them are Islamic countries, so what's so wrong about them making this kind of alliance? But when you're actually focusing on the foreign policy from the points to consider, the foreign policy of Iran actually contradicts with foreign policy of Turkmenistan. So in Turkmenistan, the prevailing law, the family code, actually legalize the age of marriage starting at 18. But in Iran, since they are following this Islamic Republic civic code of law, if I'm not mistaken, and along with their Sharia law, they actually allow the legal age of marriage at 13 for girls and 15 for boys, right? So it already contradicts with the foreign policy, not foreign policy, with the domestic policy of delegate of Turkmenistan. And not as delegates, but as board of dice, well, when this alliance is already created, well, it is their responsibility to take care of any, any criticism, especially the one that questions the foreign policy of certain delegates. So how does the board of dice actually manage it, right? So first thing first, how to manage it? Remember, as a board of dice, you're not a delegate, so you're not supposed to actually intervene too much with the proceeding of the conference. So first thing first, you have to remember that the delegates are not there to impress the dice, but to impress the other delegates. So don't expect to be impressed by your delegates, but expect those delegates to impress their fellow delegates. As in, for example, one delegate actually criticized Iran for cooperating with Turkmenistan. Then if the question by delegate of Iran, either Iran or Turkmenistan, is actually on the spectrum of entertaining you, then you can already know my answer. It is not going to be good. So if delegate of Iran try to actually negotiate with their fellow delegates in clarifying the right contradiction happening here, then you can already see that delegate of Iran is trying to make amend to his or her fellow delegates in the committee. So remember, those delegates have fellow delegates to impress, not a board of dice to impress. And second, right, you have to understand, because they are diplomats, they are delegates representing their own country, make sure these delegates did not apologize, right? I know it's a bit straightforward, but I have seen a lot of delegates apologizing in a committee, right? In offline conference, this delegate, all right, in online conference, you might not feel this as very significant, but in offline conference, when a delegate started apologizing, this had turned into a bad idea. Sorry, I mean bad direction. I just listened to bad idea on my Spotify previously, right? This had turned to a wrong direction because when they started apologizing, other delegates will start finding loopholes to criticize this delegate, which is why if this delegate start apologizing, this delegate will already receive a bad mark in my assessment, right? So the reason is because remember, you're presenting a country as an official diplomat, so you should never show your country's dishonor, right? So you should never show your country's dishonor. So just mention that you're open for negotiation for amendment in the future part, and that is all, right? Because once you have, all right, okay, I'm not going to give an oxymoron because I'm not very good at that. But as we had seen, delegate of Iran had already made a bad move, correct? So there's nothing else that they can do to fix this. Even if they want to divide the block, well, it will depend on the advancement of the debate. Sometimes it is not possible due to time limit. However, as the board of Dais, you also have to be very, what do you call it? You have to be very adaptive with the situation happening in this committee, right? Okay, so last but not least, how to make the ComSes memorable. Okay, how to make the ComSes memorable. It's going to be very short since I'm running out of time as well. So I always believe that a committee session, especially an MUN, is a combination of personal and professional attitude. So when it comes to professionalism, you have to respect the board of Dais in the committee as well as respecting your fellow distinguished delegates because you don't want your sovereignty to be breached by another delegate, correct? So you have to maintain this professionalism. However, when we're talking about personal approach to this MUN, it means that you have to understand of what this delegate is facing. So sometimes a delegate still come to me by saying, I'm not feeling very well today. So you have to understand that instead of saying, right, if you don't come today, you will not receive your certificate, right? So there is a role of personal and professional attitude or approach in a conference. And aside from that, it is also the responsibility of not only the board of Dais, but the fellow delegates. So try to make it an individual and group unit of approach. So when you're talking about individual, you yourself have to start it because your board of Dais is not the sole responsible actor to make the committee memorable, but the whole committee have to be there to make it memorable, right? So if you're questioning, why should I make it memorable? I mean, like, I'm not going to meet them anytime soon, right? Well, to be honest with you, why should you make it memorable? As before, I need to go with personal and professional approach. So personally, it will give you a good record track because admin circle is not that big, correct? I mean, like you might know this delegate from somewhere, and later on you might still meet this delegate in another conference. So it will give you actually a good track record. Although I always say that there's a new leaf for every new conferences, sometimes other delegates might still have stereotype of, oh, this delegate actually performed well in terms of substantial quality, etc. So you already have that good track record personally. And professionally, it is good for referencing. So you might do well not you might do well, but sometimes you might be referred by your fellow delegates to join this occasion. So thanks to MUN, I actually got referred to a lot of opportunities, especially in giving this kind of session, even though you already understand that I'm not very good with this kind of presentation, right? So last tips from me on how to make it wrapped up but not forgotten is 3B, right? So I understand some people who join pageant, they might see or know 3B as beauty, brain, and behavior. But for us who join MUN and who are enthusiastic about MUN, the 3B for me are first, brain, second, behavior, your behavior, especially what you did amidst the conference and what you did post-conference, right? So did you still keep in touch with your fellow delegates? And third one is befriending everyone. So always stay positive and always befriend everyone. So not all of them might seem, not every one of them might warm up to you at the beginning because we can never understand people's personalities. So if you wish to befriend them, then you need to take time, right? So the 3B, brain, behavior, and befriend everyone. Okay, so keep that in mind. And let me show you what 3B means to me in picture. So this is an example of the 3B that we had, I still kept in contact with some delegates from this conference. And if you pay attention carefully, well, this is a committee where the previous speaker, Chair Aaron, and I chaired together in. So as you can see, I hope that UNHCR, you're going to have me as your chair, and UNCND, you're going to have Aaron Aquino as your chair, and Crisis, I'm not going to give any mention to that because that's going to be very catastrophic. Well, I would like to tell you, for delegates who joined today, don't forget to keep the 3B on D-Day, brain behavior, befriend everyone, and I wish to make the conference as memorable as what I show you on this screen, right? So with that being said, I'm going to close with a quote that I almost always tell my delegates, almost always, right? So Disneyland is no Disneyland where you pay and enjoy the ride. It is a gunless battleground, so pack your ammo of diplomacy and watch your back in case you will be backstabbed, right? So with that being said, I will close my presentation and open the floor for questions. So if you wish to ask me any questions,
Maria,
kindly raise your hand.
Maria, so unfortunately, your time has completely elapsed, even the Q&A.
I'm so sorry about it.
Oh,
Right.
don't worry. We have an open forum. Those delegates wishing to ask Maria questions, just wait till the last speaker ends, okay? All those who wants to ask their questions in advance, please forward to the Secretary Generals. We will consolidate it, okay? With that,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
Maria, again for your wonderful speech. It was quite entertaining. All right. So with that, we will now head to our last speaker. Is Miss Anupa Pachadhuri from India. With a background from her, she has done several crisis committees and has been an organizer and is a good debater in her own right. So, Miss Anupa, you may now present. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. I love how Maria ended on a note which said, I will not go to the crisis committees because that's just going to be catastrophic. And that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today mostly. A bit about me. So I am pursuing my undergraduate studies at Delhi University. And the two speakers before me, Aaron and Maria, they have gone over the general advice and effective tips over chairing so sufficiently, more than sufficiently, which gives me the advantage and the liberty to make my presentation really quick and concise. So we'll just get right on to it. Just a minute. Right.
Just to make sure,
Yeah.
for the delegates here, Ms. Anupa will be discussing about how to manage specialized committees, how to give excellent general and personal feedback to delegates, and, and how to handle problematic delegates who complained with awards or caused trouble within committee sessions. This is what she will cover. Also, for those who are wondering where is Miss Ramsha, unfortunately, she cannot come due to dentist appointment. So Miss Anupa will take over her roles. Okay, Miss Anupa, you can continue.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. So like Nicholas said, the reason I will be talking about crisis and specialized committees, not only because these are the committees I have most experience with, also because this SUNMUN, I will be chairing the Chinese Politburo under the Joint Crisis Committees. And like he said, Ramsha, who's not here today, she will be chairing the East Turkestan Liberation Alliance, right? So for all delegates from these committees present here. What will we be discussing today? So we'll be discussing specialized committees in general, right? What these committees are, how to manage these such a committee, and everything under such a spectrum. Feedback, both general and personal feedback, which I think is the most important part of both as a Dais member and as a delegate, which also has already been touched upon by Aaron and Maria. So I am thankful for that. So I can have the liberty of being very quick with that since delegates already have an idea of it here. And dealing with delegates post-committee, right, when they come to you with their grievances and their dissatisfaction. So we'll be going over these. So how to select and manage specialized committees, right? So before we can understand this, let's go over what specialized committees are, right? So there are two types of specialized committees which are generally simulated at MUN conferences. You have the conventional specialized committees and the unconventional specialized ones, right? So conventional specialized committees are essentially the UN affiliated committees. They are UN specialized they're UN specialized agencies, uh, which are essentially international organizations working with the UN in accordance to relationship agreements between each of them and the United Nations itself, right? So there are 17 such specialized agencies, which you have definitely heard of before, right? You have the International Monetary Fund, you have the World Health Organization, you have the International Labour Organization, and these function along present-day timelines in accordance with the UN Charter, which is a term you now have to get familiar with in case you already aren't, and their respective individual charters or constitutions, right? What is the purpose of such committees? So usually in big organs of the UN, like the UN or the UNGA, there is an endless list of topics, right, to go through every annual session. So for that reason, smaller, separate, specialized committees dedicated to examining one issue or certain specific parts or technicalities of such agenda thoroughly are created, which is essentially what these conventional committees are. So now let's move on to the kind of committee that we will be simulating at SUNMUN, right? The unconventional committees. Now, these in turn also are of two types. You have fictional, or what is popularly known as fantasy committees, or partially fictional or partially realistic specialized agencies, right? So these are generally not UN affiliated agencies, with a few exceptions like the UN Security Council, which is an organ of the UN but not a UN specialized agency. They function independently. They usually have their own ROP, and they give the delegates creative liberty and challenges during committee itself, which is why they tend to be so dynamic and one might also say catastrophic, right? So you have, what are these committees? What do they usually look like? So these fictional committees can range from being as fantasized as the Harry Potter Ministry of Magic, or historic crisis committees discuss, like King Arthur's Council of Knights, as you can see here, futuristic security councils discussing the Third World War, a cabinet with heads of terrorist organizations from all over the world. So they can be of any such type, right? And that is the range of such committees. So they are dynamic, crisis-based agencies that probably did not or cannot exist in the real world, and hence are at the complete creative liberty of the chairperson, and also intelligent contributions of the delegates themselves, right? The jurisdiction, direction, and crisis arc of such committees is entirely in the hands of the chairperson, and so requires extensive planning and research into the intricacies of the agenda, which is something important to keep in mind as a member of the Dais, right? Into all possible outcomes of the committee being simulated. And now we come to partially fictional committees, right? So this is the type of committee that we will be simulating at SUNMUN. This is the committee that we have under the Joint Crisis Committee. So these can, again, range from things like Hitler's war cabinet, presidential war cabinets like John F. Kennedy's cabinet. They can also be historic or even present-day security councils discussing topics or agenda which may have existed, which have existed or do exist in real time, but the chairperson or the Dais wants to take this committee in a direction which is slightly different from how it happened in real time, right? Which is why these committees are simulated. So these two are dynamic crisis-based committees, but are simulated realistically, right? Which is the main difference between a fantasy committee and a partially fictional committee like this. So like I said, they may have existed in the past or do exist and are discussing topics of importance in accordance to their timeline and the nature of that committee, right? So if it's a government council, like a presidential war cabinet, so that will function in accordance with rules and jurisdiction of a certain government of a certain country. Or if it's a secret society or an illegal society about which information, not much information is available, that becomes, again, comes under the creative liberty of the chairperson and the delegates on how they want to simulate this committee, right? So as a chairperson, you may follow a timeline in accordance to events that took place in real time, or create crisis updates and twists of your own to challenge the delegates. Now, something like I already mentioned to be remembered like about these committees are that they are unconventional, they are dynamic, but as a chairperson, you cannot make these committees too unrealistic, right? They have to have some semblance of what happened in real time or what may be a realistic possible outcome. One also needs to ensure, so this is another Dais tip, right? To maintain a balance between the committee direction and crisis planning of the Dais, which is what you have envisioned for the committee, and also crisis direction being taken up by the delegates. So these kind of committees leave a lot to the delegates to decide to take the committee in a certain direction. So there needs to be a very delicate balance between the two, right? Also, again, you need to be open to all possible outcomes for the committee and make, most importantly, impromptu changes and updation to your own vision and direction for the committee and the agenda, right? So just to sum up, committee mandate, which again is an important thing to remember for unconventional committees like the specialized agencies. So as a chairperson, you must have extensive research and knowledge into your own committee mandate, right? Now, these may be established mandates or jurisdictions and constitutions which are easily available, which is normally how it happens for UN specialized agencies or even a Security Council. But if you are simulating a government cabinet, for instance, then you need to know exactly how the government of that particular country functions. How an American war cabinet will function will be different from how a Chinese cabinet will be functioning, right? If it has a unique mandate that is not common knowledge, right? So like an illegal society or a secret society, like we saw in the examples before, care must be taken to spell out in detail the ROP and the mandate that you wish for delegates to follow, right? So there must be no room for ambiguity on the part of the delegates, which is also something that was covered by Aaron and Maria regarding the study guide and how there needs to be a certain level of transparency, right, between the Dais and the delegates. And just a general overview of the management. So like we already went over, there needs to be a balance between reality and fiction, between the conventional and the unconventional, between crisis solving through paperwork and through speeches and deliberation, which becomes very important in crisis committees. As you go over ROP, which will happen, take place for SUNMUN, you will see that a very important part of specialized agencies is communications like communiques or directives. So there needs to be a very delicate balance between speeches and deliberation and such paperwork, right? One needs to avoid saturating delegates with excessive crisis updates. Again, a very important part of such committees. So because these committees are unconventional and dynamic, the Dais needs to constantly update the committee with certain crisis plans and updates. But care must be taken that the delegates are not saturated and overburdened with these updates, right? So if you see that the delegates are simply receiving and deliberating on updates, but they're not solving them through substantive paperwork and otherwise, then you need to take a pause and you need to allow the delegates, you need to remind them, the delegates, we need to go over these updates, we need to solve them before you move on to more updates, right? Try not to end committee on an inconclusive note, right? So this is something that actually happened with me. It sounds funny, but I was in an American war cabinet. It was a presidential cabinet. And our last update was that we have a nuclear missile headed our way. Our president has been poisoned and everybody in committee dies, right? Like half of the US is wiped off or something like that. So this opens you for a lot of criticism as a Dais. So try not to end committee on an inconclusive note. You need not stick to what happened in real time or a very obvious outcome, but make it as realistic as possible, right? And of course, be observant of what the delegates want from committee and try to complement that with your own vision and direction, which is something we did go over. Be prompt, but you need not keep communication and directive lines open at all times, which is again something to be aware of. So like I said, communications and directives are paperwork, which are a very important part of specialized committees. Now, you need to also know the limits of your own dais. And while you need to be prompt in responding to the delegates, which you need to respond to each paperwork, each substantive that they submit to you, you need not keep these lines open at all times, right? So maybe after a crisis update, you can open up these lines, you can allow for paperwork to come in for a while, and then you can pause, you can go over this, respond to the delegates, and then again open communication lines later, right? So there is a lot of balance that needs to be kept in mind while being in the dais of such specialized committees. So that's mostly it about what you need to know regarding specialized committees. We'll go over feedback, which is a very essential part of both chairing and as a delegate, right? So we'll start with general feedback and how these two are very distinct from one another, general and personal feedback. So most importantly is to have a feedback session at the end of each committee session, which if you paid attention is something that Aaron did mention. It's so important. Instead of waiting for the MUN to end at the end of the second day or third day, however long the MUN is, try to pause sometimes, and at the end of each session, and if need be, even in between sessions, if you feel like the committee needs it, pause, have a feedback session, converse with your delegates in order to make them as comfortable as possible, right? So in general feedback, you only mention overall performance of the committee, right? Flow of debate, feasibility of solutions, if the solutions were original, or if they need to be more original. Responsiveness of the committee to the Dais. So as a Dais member, you often give hints and suggestions and tips whilst committee is being simulated. So are the delegates responding to that? Do you want delegates to respond to that more, right? Refrain from being too specific to any particular delegate. So a very important part of general feedback, which is what is given to the committee at the end of sessions, is that they try not to, in a good way, use the delegate as an example to exemplify a point, or in a bad way, target a delegate, right? It needs to be very general and overall. Right. Ask committee for feedback, which is very, very important. If they are comfortable with the pace of committee, what they would like to be done differently for the next session, ask them for feedback regarding the Dais overall, right? Without making it too polarizing, so that delegates are comfortable, so that they can share that, hey, I think the committee was too fast-paced, which is very important in specialized agencies. Or if they want the committee to be more fast-paced, if they want more breaks, more unmonocoques, right? So things like that. Give suggestions for how committee can work better in the next session, which is also something we went over, right? So you need to tell committee overall what you want from committee in the next session, what the Dais wants from committee. So if you want there to be more lobbying because motions are not being passed, right? If you want more paperwork, if you want more speeches, if you need speeches to be more researched so that they can come prepared and equipped for the next session. And lastly, most importantly, try to be as constructive as possible whilst sharing such feedback while giving your assessment. Delegates should not feel disheartened, especially as a committee, at possibly underperforming or disappointing the chair, right? Which goes hand in hand in what both our speakers before talked about, just having an air of positivity with your delegates, right? So now we come to personal feedback, which is what often happens even during committee and mostly happens after committee has ended, right, after session. So this is constructive and very personalized feedback, focusing on very intricate and focusing on the smaller details of their delegate, of their research, of their diplomatic etiquette, their lobbying, etc. So how do you go about this? You refer to your scoring sheet, which, as you saw when Maria was presenting, it's very, very detailed and very, very transparent as well. So you specify where they need to improve. You mention where they are strong, where they have performed well, so that there is again a balance in your own feedback to the delegate as well, right? Ask the delegate to assess their own performance, which is also an important tip, I feel, to make that feedback more conversational so that the delegate doesn't feel that there is this air of superiority on the part of the dais, right? That the delegate should not feel dictated in any way. So ask them what they thought of their performance. Did they feel they did well? What they thought was their strength, what they thought their weaknesses were, right? So converse with the delegate. Refrain from giving generalized and similar comment to all delegates asking for personal feedback and assessment, which is a very important part of being a chair, right? You might think that you're never going to meet this delegate again, and why should you care? But again, like the speaker before me said, these circles are small, and at the end of the day, you gave your time to this conference, right? This delegate gave their time to your conference. So don't give generalized feedbacks, right? If you need time, tell the delegate that you'll get back to the delegate. You will come back with an assessment and you will give them a more personalized feedback, right? And now we come to the final segment, which is dealing with dissatisfied delegates, which is a very, very common phenomenon. As a member of the Dais, you will have delegates who will not be satisfied with committee, who mostly will not be satisfied with how the awards were given out, right? Who felt they deserved better or something like that. So the most important part is try not to patronize the delegate, right? Don't tell them, don't come with that air of superiority, because as a chairperson, you and your co-chairperson or your head chairperson, your fellow member of the Dais, this is a very individual assessment, right? So you can't really blame the delegates for thinking that there may be a subconscious bias or otherwise. So how do you deal with this delegate? You refer to your marking sheet. You ensure that you spell out to the delegate exactly where they fell short, regarding their points, research, and how they can improve on said front. If the delegate still seems dissatisfied, you may even go ahead and show them, your marking sheet and highlight the difference in points or numbers between that delegate and maybe a delegate who won an award that they wanted, right? Something like that. The key is in being as fair and transparent in your assessment as possible. Encourage the delegate. So again, this forms a part of always being very positive and constructive in your feedback, right? You tell them areas where they excelled in committee, how they made an impression on you despite not winning an award or otherwise. And lastly, suggest to them that they speak with their fellow delegates in committee. So often you will trust your colleagues or your peers more in giving you a more honest and unbiased feedback. So you suggest that to the delegate, right? You tell them that you can go, why don't you go and talk to the delegates in committee, ask them how they felt about your performance and where they think you can improve, right? So it needs to be a very symbiotic and a very comfortable space for both you and the delegate, right? And that's about it. Thank you. Nicholas, you go take over now and open the floor for questions, maybe.
Yes. Thank you, Anupa. That was a short, concise, but straight to the point presentation. Thank you very much. Now we have more than enough time for Q&A. So with that, any delegate wants to give a Q&A to Anupa, please raise your hands or through the chat. Let's see. All right. Since there's none right now, I'll start with this. Okay. So Anupa. Okay, wait. We have one. Chelvin, UNHCR Sweden. What's your question?
Greetings. My question is for Mr. Aaron Aquino.
Oh, sorry. It's just Anupa first.
Anupa, sorry.
So you have a question to Anupa?
So, my question for Miss Anupa is how can you say to a delegate or that what he or she is doing is already making other delegates uneasy of what they are already doing? Like let's first say in a working block, uh, how can you address to a delegate properly the actions he or she should be able to do?
Right. I think I get your question. Thank you so much. Um, so I think this goes hand in hand with the entire concept of feedback, right? So if there are delegates who are uncomfortable with how a delegate is presenting themselves in committee, or if as a Dais member, we feel that the delegate is not conducting themselves in a right way, or what they're doing may or may not be the right procedure. So delegates will always it will always be an option for the delegates to approach the Dais member and tell them that, hey, is this right? Is this how it's supposed to be done? And what can we do differently? Or I'm not comfortable with this. And like I said, your committee will have to always be a very safe and comfortable space for both the Dais and the delegates. So, we can address that in committee personally to the delegate and tell them that I think you're not conducting yourself in a right way. Somebody is not feeling comfortable. So this is how you can do it differently, right? And also in an anonymous way, address that in committee in general, that are you happy with how this change was made? Is there anyone who still has an issue with it? So it's a very symbiotic, I think, process. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions in the floor? Any other questions? Feel free to do it in the chat or raise your hands. Oh, wait. While we wait, I'll ask a question. This time, so, Ms. Anupa, you talked about giving feedback to dissatisfied delegates. Let's give a good example of when you're chairing, you were given a chance to not have a rubric. So it's much more on your personal uh, beliefs and objectives.
Mhm.
But let's give this. There's three of you, or in a days. Each one has their own set of beliefs. So, for example, a delegate who did not win, let's say, best delegate, is dissatisfied, despite knowing he ro- pretty much led the committee, made the best speeches. All right. Under your metrics, this delegate is the best delegate. But under the your code days, they didn't really care about the output at all. They just care about the speeches.
Right.
And then they tried to convince you that this is the uh this is supposed to be it. How would you respond to that? Because this delegate felt like it wasn't given due acknowledgement for one aspect of his or her performance.
Nick, just to clarify on your question, has the Best Delegate Award already been given to this delegate
It's
or
been
not
given.
been? It's
It's
been
been
given to
given.
this delegate. Okay. So this is actually something that happened in one of the MUNs in my school, back in my school. There was this delegate that I was really impressed with. And this delegate was leading committee and made great speeches, great research. But my co-chairperson, she was not very happy with the delegate, right? She felt that the delegate was not dominant enough in committee, which was what I remember her problem was, right? She wanted the delegate to have more of a presence. So there was this other delegate who had great presence, was very dominating, but his speeches were not as researched and original as this delegate. So what you're talking about, the dissatisfaction is mostly between the dais, right? Between agreement in the dais. So what we did was that we actually had this anonymous chit session. And we asked the delegates that, hey, who do you think should get best delegate, and make it completely anonymous. And they actually submitted their chits, and it ended up being this delegate, right? And I told my co-chairperson, hey, listen, this is not just what I think. This is what the committee thinks too, that this delegate was good and this delegate deserved this award. And also, like Aaron was mentioning in between, in response to Maria's question, that we already try to establish a good and positive relation between Dais members. So I think, just through methods like this and simply communication between the members of the Dais, I think you can come to a conclusive agreement regarding such issues. Do you think that's
All right. Okay, that's a good question. That's a good answer. I'll give a follow up. Let's go with a different scenario just in case when it comes to the. All right, let's say for this, you are the head chair, but you got a bit busy due to external problems
Mhm.
within the within the committee that you have to oversee. So you couldn't properly grade your the delegates for the best delegates. So on the last session, you had to entrust your co-chair in selecting the best delegate award. So when the co-chair gave the list, you approved of it because you believe that your co-chair would give the best
Right.
objective result. Even though one of the setting for best delegate felt off for you, in the sense that your best delegate was somebody not even in place or second place, but you couldn't be, but you couldn't give a best analysis on it, and you have to give the award already. So okay, so when you gave the award, and then the person under your metric initially ask you, why is this person not on best delegate? And then you give the example and you gave your reason, and this delegate is not satisfied. And then you ask your co-chair why this person did not give. And you found out that your co-chair's own metrics did not suit yours, which you do not does not suit yours. And this delegate is now feeling dissatisfied that it wasn't given proper grading from both chairs equally to give him proper assessment. So how would you do that? That's a very
Mhm.
in that circumstance, because it
Yeah.
show in an instance where one of the chairs was not able to give a, a full grading.
Hmm. It's something that does happen very commonly.
Yeah.
So I think a good way to go about this would be that if I, as a chair, or anyone else as a chair, if we've missed out on a chunk of the conference, right? So before giving up, before simply approving a list from the other member of the dais, I think a good chairperson would wait for a while and deliberate with this co-chairperson and be like, you know what, I was gone for a while and I saw this delegate that you're giving best delegate to. I saw this delegate perform XYZ, right? So when I was gone, how many Modcox did this delegate speak in, which should be there on my Dais members' marking sheet or otherwise that they spoke so many times. And often a lot of chairs I've seen, they also write down in verbatim what the delegate has said in committee. So I would, before leaving, ask my co-chair to keep these things in mind, right? Before simply approving of a, a list for best delegate. And I think it would be a very unfortunate situation if I agree with the fact that a best delegate has been given to a delegate who maybe didn't deserve it. But I think considering the fact that I wasn't there in committee, I think the only way to go about this would be to not make decisions head on, right? To sort of deliberate with my Dais members about what would be the best way to go about it and why our marking matrices are so different from each other's, and to ensure that we have a united front when it comes to the delegates, because it gives a very bad impression if the delegate notices that there is a disagreement between Dais members. So, the end result has to be something that both are happy with.
All right. So let's go further to that. In that scenario, let's say the worst comes to worst, the
Okay,
delegate is.
Nicholas, can you just give me 5 seconds? I just need to go and open the door for someone. Can you just give me 5 seconds?
Okay. Five
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah.
All right, Anupa.
I'm so sorry.
All right. So let's continue. Let's say the worst comes to worst. You have a very dissatisfied delegate from
Okay.
that say case scenario where it felt like it wasn't properly graded, and this delegate fights back. Let's say, for example, this delegate is actually also an experienced chair, so it becomes heated. How would you manage it?
Sounds like a very unfortunate situation which no one wants to be in. But if it did come to this, then I think, like I also said in my presentation, that a very good way to go about it would just put this front to the delegate that, hey, what we've done is not a personal decision. You have the numbers in front of you and show them marking sheets of all the Dais members, whether that's 2 or 3 or whatever, and just say, listen, this is how it is, right? And if we are comparing you to the delegate who got best delegate, this is why we feel this delegate was better. And whilst we're at it, because this delegate is also an experienced chair, we have to try and be positive and constructive without being patronizing. And we say, hey, listen, maybe this is just a bad day. Maybe it was a bad day for you, because we know that you're capable, you have so much potential. But let's not, ponder over just this one conference so much, because you had so much else to offer to us, and go into the positives of what this delegate had to offer, how they made an impression, where their strengths were, and how that impressed us. Because I think if a delegate is fighting back and making it really heated and aggressive, then and he or she sees that the dais is being just really calm and objective about it, and sort of being positive, then I think the delegate will automatically sort of back down, right? Because they'll start maybe feeling a bit bad for behaving in that way, which is what I feel it would
Okay.
look like.
Okay, that's also a good answer. So you believe that you should not fight back with aggression as well. Do not make the
Right,
delegate feel like they're in the wrong,
right, right,
fully in the
right,
wrong.
right.
Do not make them feel like they're just being antagonistic.
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah.
okay. All right. It just was just a very bad day. All right. Okay, thank you for that. That's a good way how to manage a crisis. And also that's actually really good etiquette for a days to keep a level of professionalism without re- patronizing, even if this delegate is really pressing you and even if you're irritated about it. All right. So with that, is there any other questions for Miss Anupa? We have enough time for a few more questions. Any person wants to raise their hand? Any? I'll check my personal chats.
I think, Nick, you have covered every possible question that the delegates may have been even shy to ask with your questions.
Let's see what else. What else? What else? Let me check. Let me check if there's something else here. Okay, I think there's. Wait. Okay, there's one. So when it comes to general feedback, is it is it usually possible to give it through a thorough presentation like your grading system or presenting the entire grading system, or if your personal grading system, or is it not allowed?
Okay, I think I've actually seen this be done at a conference, and Aaron was actually my head chair for that. And he said that it's actually his a tradition he follows, where he shows to the committee before it begins, what his grading system usually looks like. So delegates are aware of exactly where they need to focus on in committee. So I think showing them your overall grading system is allowed, not just in general feedback, but at any point in committee, because that just shows to the delegates that as a Dais member, they know in their head that, okay, this is a Dais member who's going to be really objective, who's going to be to the point and who has a system, and there is no room for biases here. So I think it's very much allowed and also a bit recommended, I'd say.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Anupa. And looks like we've exhausted our time for Q&A. Now we will move to the open session. So other speakers, please open your videos. We're gonna be in an open forum for all the other questions given to our delegates, as we
Thank
have
you,
some
Nicholas.
questions here. So let me check. All right. There is, wait, there's two questions I got from for Aaron. So the first one, can you give tips on how a first timer should interact with a professional mooner, especially during working blocks?
Sorry, can you repeat it? My internet is so.
All right, I'll speak louder.
All right.
Aaron, listen. How can you give tips on how a first timer should interact with a professional mooner, especially during working blocks?
All right. During the first timers, during my past conferences for the first timers, normally, um, I always tell them to ask questions, especially when it comes to blocks or when it comes to creating contents on the draft resolutions, because you won't know how the blocks would work. You wouldn't know how the blocks would operate or how the draft resolution would be created if you will not ask questions. After all learning starts from questions. So I always ask them to ask questions, not just to me, but also to the professional delegates. So I normally they message me. I receive during committee sessions. Actually, I receive messages from first timers that, hey head chair, I'm a bit scared, especially with professional or experienced delegate. But what I do in these cases is I ask them to um, ask questions. Then on the other hand, I supplement that action by asking every single addressing the whole committee, especially during breaks, to really be welcoming to the first timers. And it's really effective that you always remind, especially those overpowered those experienced delegates, to really welcome the first timers, for them not be scared to ask questions, because the first just like the situational leadership I told you a while ago, that it's very that the first beginners are really have high commitment but low competence, so they really have to build that competence, and they can build that by again asking questions.
All right, thank you for that, Aaron. There's now another question for directed to you from CND Iraq, who might not be here anymore. Is any grade level or any age allowed in MUN? So this is just a simple question.
Um, just for your information, guys, how old I am. Yeah. I just give you background of my past committees I headed. From the youngest, I had a past delegate age 10 years old. Then I had a delegate which age at 61, I think, or 63 years old. So I think as long as you're willing to learn how UN operates through participating MUNs, it's very okay. It's very okay to participate. I mean, MUN is not closing doors to every single individual. In the first place, it does not restrict everyone. But I think it's your edge if you are um, if you are, educated, literate, it's your edge. But being illiterate or having less experience won't stop you to learn or to participate.
All right, thank you for that, Aaron. This is now directed for all three speakers. How can a chair maintain light mood in the committee, even if there is already friction gaining, especially when different blocks are already building up? So this is from the delegate of Sweden from UNHCR.
So am I going to answer first?
Sure,
All right.
Maria.
Okay, nice question. Legal student. I'll be looking out for you. I believe the legal student had already started doing this kind of thing, so that is why legal student asked this way. Right. So to be honest with the legal student, right, I often like to answer your questions in a manner that the answer that you would not like to hear, but the answer that you need, right? So usually it depends on the conference and the board of Dais whether or not you could actually start negotiating before the conference. Mostly in Indonesian circumstances, you are not allowed to start doing this kind of negotiation before the D-Day. Sometimes in worst extent, you are going to be not acknowledged, but you're going to be warned, given warning, verbal warning, I guess, actually written warning. I mean, like through text by your board of Dais or by the secretariat, notifying you not to do that in advance. So that is what happens in Indonesia. However, in this kind of international level MUN, sometimes the board of Dais are more lenient, right? It does not mean that this is less strict, but actually, if we already have some delegates who already started making the blog, well, it depends on the board of Dais. Since the class today is for preparing you to become board of Dais, so this is what I usually like to do. So when I say that this blog is actually not invoking or stirring the mood in a manner that we might disfavor, so I will let that be. But if this blog is actually creating a too predominant impact or presence, is creating a too predominant presence only for them, to the extent that it creates some groupism. Yeah, I guess you can use the word groupism, right? So I will actually stand in. So sometimes in my past conferences, I become the shadow delegate and try to win their own partnership. So that is what I usually do to keep the mood light. Not so sometimes when you think, all right, you want to keep the mood light, but you just discourage them by becoming shadow delegate. However, when you are saying about keeping the mood light, it actually depends on the overall situation of the committee, correct? So the committee, the conference itself, the debate itself must focus not only on your own block, but to all delegates. So if this committee or this debate had been brought to a rather unfavor or disfavorable light by certain block, then it is up to the board of Dais on how to actually take action against this block, because it will require your actually not conceived, but as a board of Dais, you should not make it very visible if you want to actually disband or cancel one group or one block, because it's going to be hard. But later on during the debate, you will see if this delegate had already started making the air or the atmosphere or the vibe rather unfavorable, then you will understand when it's time for you to leave that block. Sometimes it happens in the middle of the conference, even though you have already done, all right, I agree with you. Before the conference, you already had a call. Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. We are going to make good block, but on D-Day, the situation might be different. So always open up to changes, right? Be adaptive. That is all from me. And go ahead, Anupa, Aaron.
All right. For me, it's just short because it's some of my ways are same with Maria. For the pre-conference, actually,
Be
I can
different.
see Maria's
So
reactions.
always open
Some
up
of
to
my
changes, right? Be
some of my
adaptive. That is
conference,
all from me.
basically what
And
I do
go ahead, Anupa, Aaron.
is to enter because some of my committee really arrange committee meetings before the conference day itself. So there's a lot of times that I um acted as a shadow delegate. So there's this one time that they arranged a meeting and they were trying to create a block, and I was really shocked about that because was I entered the meeting in the name of delegate of, I think, Argentina or delegate of Philippines. I entered that. Then I was trying to insist that we should not create blocks because like that, we haven't discussed anything yet. We haven't heard the points of other delegates yet. So we should not create block now so that we cannot close the doors for other delegates to join our blocks in the future or in the conference date itself. And yeah, guess what? What happened is that delegate shout at me. Shout at me, not knowing that I am the head chair. So during the first day of the conference, he like he was really shocked that, hey, the delegate of Argentina is actually the head chair. So he sent a long message to me, apologizing, but anyways, he won as the best delegate that time. But I apology accepted. But anyways, yeah, I normally give them tips as a delegate during pre-conference, even though there's no because in the past conference that I chaired, there are no really restrictions on engaging delegates before the conference. Then on the day of the conference, if they are being, for example, if they have already created blocks without my awareness, and they are being overpowered. I mean, they are overpowering other delegates. I always um, ask them questions. I mean, during breaks also, like their progress, and I always like give them advice that, hey, you cannot because there are times that they create block before the conference because they have already draft resolutions. That's a possible reason. So what I do is I always tell them you cannot include anything you haven't discussed in the committee. So during the committee, I always have a journal of the points that they have discussed. And when they submitted a draft resolution, I reviewed it. And when I saw some things that are not discussed, I pointed out during the discussion process of the draft resolution. So always remind them to not include in the draft resolution the things that you haven't discussed, and to listen first to other delegates before creating any other blocks. And if they keep on insisting to close their blocks within themselves only, then it is your prerogative to do anything that you want. But normally, I I'm a very lenient chair. I'm a very lenient chair, and I'm not very strict. And yeah, normally I let it pass, but it reflects on my marking sheet, and I message them after the conference to give them personal feedback also, especially those delegates who needs personal feedback from me. That's it for me.
All right, Anupa.
I think Anne and Maria have more or less gone over, all possible solutions, especially regarding the a possible DAS member shadow delegating, or ensuring that, you inform the delegates that no matter if they form a block, they can only include those points in a DR that are discussed in committee. And in my experience, I have mostly been on the dais of either security councils or specialized cabinets, right? And in a security council, it's inevitable having blocks. You will always have that one block led by US and the other block led by Russia or otherwise. So sometimes it is inevitable, and you can't really stop the delegates and tell them that, hey, don't form a block. So I think it's committee specific, and it really depends on the situation how you deal with it. If you want to approach the delegate and tell them as a DAS member that I think we can try to function first by deliberating in committee before we move into blocks or otherwise.
All right. Thank you for that, Anupa. Okay. Now we have another question, and this is quite interesting. It remains anonymous from the giver. Okay. Is it possible for the days to control delegates who are flirting in the committee? If yes, up to what extent? All right. Who wants to answer this first?
Control flirting. All right. All right. For my side, I mean, it's no problem as long as it does not affect the formal sessions. I mean, during the I most of the time give quick breaks. I most of the time give quick breaks to give them reminders on decorum, especially on the things that they should not say in the committee and the things that they should say in the committee. So when it comes to that, that issue, it's quite interesting. Um, what I do, actually, it happens in the gossip box, especially when there are confessions like that. But I always tell them like, hey, if you have something to say about this delegate, from this gossip box like that, and we'll read them during entertainment session. Then that way, we would be regulating how they act during formal sessions and even during informal sessions. But during informal sessions, I at times, since I'm the guy, or I'm the person who loves those kind of gossips, kind of gossip. I most of the time join them with that, but always limit the kind of flirting. Between the two delegates, that if they want to talk more personally, they can talk on their personal chats or DMs. Can remind them about that. All right, that's
All
it from
right.
me.
Who's next?
All right, I'll add more to what Aaron had said because we experienced it together, correct?
Yes.
All right. So, delegates, as always, I'd like to give the answer based on what you need to hear, not what you would like to hear, right? So sometimes when you're asking to what extent can we limit the flirting happening or occurring in the comedy, sometimes you have to understand what kind of flirting that actually make, right? Remember when I said how to make a comedy memorable? One of them is by your behavior, and it is a personal approach, correct? So if your flirting is kept at this not normal, but acceptable rate, then it is okay. But sometimes flirting gone too wrong, as in some delegates is actually using this kind of um, inappropriate words to describe a certain delegate that they are into, and they even put it in the gossip box. So what we actually did was that we gave a verbal warning. However, this not only happens with flirtation. So just in a conference that I chaired, we had some delegates who actually became shadow delegates. So they did not even register for this conference, but I don't know how they actually got this link. And they tried to create a chaos by condemning certain countries. So when we're talking about, let's say we're talking about UNDP, we're talking about capacity building, but this delegate suddenly talks about, hey, the delegate of India knows that China is against the delegate of India. And they actually said some words like DAMN, all right? I'm not going to read it out loud to that certain delegate. So sometimes it is not only flirting that we should restrict, but also the decorum. So for flirting, as long as you know your limit, then it is okay. Because I'm also a fan of those kind of flirting activities, especially in gossip session, right? However, in the middle of the conference, try to restrict yourself to be as professional as you could, right? But delegate of VNCR, you've already known, not delegate of VNCR only, delegate of VNCR and delegate of CND, you've already known your board of Dais. So both Aaron and I actually favor this kind of thing. So you've already known how to, entertain your board of Dais during the entertainment session. Okay.
All right, Anupa.
If I give what I think of it to all delegates of the CND and the UNHCR, if you want your chairs to pay attention to your flirtshits, the best way to do it would be to ship the two chairs of your committees, because all of us will be doing that. But I agree with what they said, right? Like as Dais members, we don't have a problem with any flirtshits between delegates or to the Dais, and it's actually fun. It makes committee fun and interactive, as long as it's not offensive, right? As long as it doesn't cross any limits and doesn't offend a member of the committee, because that's when it gets bad, and that's when the fun goes out of it, which shouldn't happen, right? So just make it innocent and fun, and like nobody will really have a problem with it.
All right. Okay. Okay, we have another question. This is similar to what I gave a question to Anupa when it comes to problematic delegates. Okay, so in regards to this question, let's say the aggressive delegate really just can't take it, felt very unfairly graded, and wants to make a formal complaint, and wants to make a case against it. How would the chair How would the chair manage that to avoid a problematic scandal within the committee or within the conference? Because there are some delegates that can act immature or irrational, or could be or maybe they feel they're just so professionally wrong. So any one of the three speakers can answer this.
Sorry, Nicholas, can you clarify? Is it during or after, like the greeting?
After. after the
like the
grading.
awards like that.
Yes, a
Uh,
very dissatisfied delegate who feels who's
award.
either very immature or feels like it was truly professionally wrong.
All right. I'll start. I'll start by giving my experience. My first experience on that is after the conference, there are this kind of two delegates who are really dissatisfied of the results of the awards. They were not given very, very high awards. They were only given verbal commendations. And normally, it has been my tradition in my committee to create an informal group where informal conversations happen there, and the formal conversations are in the formal group. But during those times, the informal group was not created by me, but it was created by the delegates. So they don't know that I'm there. So after the conference, I'm there in the informal group. They were really backstabbing us, and I was called, "Hey, our chair is pedophile. Hey, our chair is as how was our chair is how our chair sucks. Our chair, I won't receive any certificate from the chair that is pedophile." Like, what? Just to give you a context, because most of my winners, I mean, top winners, are somewhat younger than them. And what I did is I confronted them. I had direct communication with them. So first, what I did is to answer them directly on the group. Then they answered me back. Then I really tried to be professional as possible. You should be always try to be professional as possible, because it's your image that you're trying. It's your public image that you're trying to hold. You should not destroy your public image. So I tried to be as professional as possible. Then they will keep on answering, and cursing me, even though they know that I'm already there. So I message them on the DM or personal message, asking them to explain what's happening, why and I explained my side on why I give that award like that. And they haven't answered me, and they only seen me. So what I did is, hey, I'm arranging a special meeting with you, delegate of New Zealand, I think, and delegate of Argentina. Please enter this group meeting on this day. Then they would say, why would I attend that one? Why would I attend that one? Who are you to like that? Yeah, like that. So what I did is, um, I don't think I think it's my most hardest things that I did, but for others it's not hard. But I skipped their names from the list of awardees, even though they are only verbal commendations, and give my final message to them on the DM and reported it to the secretariat, so that they know how to deal with it also. But normally, just be professional. Just try to understand them. Again, just like what I said earlier, you are a chair. Be receptive to ideas. Maybe you are wrong. Maybe you are right. And hear their explanation. If you know you are already sure that they are wrong, try to explain it thoroughly. If they are still insisting, give a final message and report to the secretariat.
Okay. So Maria, Anupa, you want to add on your insights and your experience from this? This is actually very insightful.
All right, from Aaron's experience, it is actually a very, not very, yeah, so to actually address this kind of thing, you need to learn from experience. So just like what Aaron said, well, it is from his own experience, all right? So because this kind of question needs a situational response, so I would not elaborate on what kind of responses that you can give depending on the situation, because when the time comes, you will know what the right call you have to make. So instead of letting that happen, what you can actually do in advance is to prevent it, right? So just like what I said, well, Aaron had been a very good chair. However, this situation or that conference that he was referring to might have just gone into a bad turn, right? So usually every time we announce the award, what I like to do is that we justify why we did not have this kind of award, or why this delegate received this award instead of the other delegate that you might have in your mind, right? Because the delegate that you see in your mind might be, well, might be deserving for this award might not be the same delegate that the board of Dais had in mind in terms of deserving the award, correct? So in my personal experience, I rarely give a best delegate award. However, so many of my delegates actually understand why I did not give that award, because I already told them a good best delegate should be given based on the criteria that I've said or described previously in my presentation. And of course, you need to tell them, not need to tell them, but I usually tell them, I almost always tell them, well, becoming a best delegate had a responsibility of its own. So when you're a best delegate in my committee, does that guarantee that in the future you're also going to be a best delegate in another committee? Which is why I rarely give best delegate if I see that this delegate is not deserving yet in terms of best committee today, tomorrow, and forever after. Well, forever after is too much. So you give the understanding for those delegates on why they did not give it in advance, and if that delegate still went out of your way, still went out of their way and criticize you like what happened to Aaron, then you take this kind of mediation way, like confront them, because sometimes they are only supported by groupism, right? So if they do not have their group, then they can't face you personally. That is my answer to that, right?
All right, Anupa, you're the last one.
I think not just for this situation, I think any of the situations that a lot of the delegates are asking about, or even just our presentation in general, I mean, it's very difficult to list out do's and don'ts and, just specify this is exactly how you need to behave as a chair. And this is exactly how you can be a good chair, because it just comes with experience. And something like this, like Maria said, is situational and it depends on who the delegate is who is criticizing you and what is your relationship with the secretariat, and if you can approach the secretariat and explain to them why this delegate behaved this way. And the best way would be to just have a transparent approach at the very beginning of committee, where you just explain that this is how this is what I expect out of committee, and this is what my best delegate will look for me, and this is my criteria in order to prevent something like that from happening.
All right, thank you for that, Anupa. As somebody who chaired several times as well, I could also add my own insights to this. Yes, it's really depends on the situation, but first and foremost, for a chair, you really have to send the rules for the delegates, that what their behavior should be like, how they should, what should they act, how should they treat their other delegates. That's why for me, before the conference, I give a list of do's and don'ts already into my committee groups, where this is what I expect. And I also, this is just me, I also emphasize that I can be incredibly strict when it comes to attitude and when it comes to how they work within the committees, because I have a reputation of being a strict chair. And none of these speakers will deny that. No one here will deny that. Even my own secretariat. Which is also fortunate. If you're a strict chair, which is a practice I can encourage you guys if you want to go to that route. The stricter, when you're strict, the less will try questioning you, because they feel like they cannot roll over you if they feel like you're very lenient. Because it feels like you were really great. It gives them the idea. And this is usually is. You're very systematic. You really take account of all their actions, and you really want to see the best of their performances. And they can also see it that way. It needs to give discipline. And it also helps power delegates from not being overpowering to the others. If they know their chair is really watching them, and it will not take any bad attitude down the line. Okay, so that's just me. I don't, if you want to be a strict chair, go for it. If you want to be lenient, go for it. Preferably you can go in between, but it has its own pros and cons. Okay, the worst thing you can get as being a strict chair is because you'll be scary, and no one will want to be in the same committee as you. But at the same time, at least nobody will have the guts to challenge you. Only the bravest can do that. But that's just a personal experience. But there will always be a delegate out there who will challenge you. And it's also good for us chairs, because at least it also challenges us back in knowing how to best gauge a delegate and how to best manage very difficult in situations that we are ourselves are feel very uncomfortable with. We need to go out of these safe spaces. So that's for me. And right now we've elapsed our time for open forum. And we also elapsed our time for Q for all our questions. But thankfully all the questions were given already from our delegates. So with that, as Secretary General, I am formally ending our webinar series 2 on effective chairing. Thank you, speakers. Thank you so much. So without further ado, we'll have our formal picture taking. So all delegates, please show your video yourself. I really need to see your faces. USG for Academics. Natasha, okay. So for the head chairs, maybe you should also take your own screenshots just in case if I fail to make a screenshot. All right. So on 3, smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's it. We got the screenshot. Thank you, delegates. Thank you so much. So right now in the Philippine Standard Time, it's 11:10 o'clock. For Indonesia, it's 10:10. And for India, I think that's 9:40, if I'm not mistaken.
8:40.
8:40. So fortunately, if you're Indian, you're not you're in India, it's not that late. But it's very late here in the Philippines. All right. So we can end our live stream already. So delegates, if you just want to, if you want, you can now free to leave the meeting.
Okay.
And
See you,
see
CND area.
you. Yes. But just to share, we will have one more seminar online. This is gonna be for the rules of procedures upcoming. Okay. We will announce the date soon enough. Okay. So those who are still gonna have a hard time knowing the ins and outs of Zoom and Discord, this is your chance. Okay.